The station hung like a silver jewel above the neutral planet of Tareen, its massive rings reflecting distant starlight. Hundreds of ships glided in and out of the docking bays, a constant hum of engines and chatter filling the vast corridors. This was the intergalactic training station Z-17, a place where pilots from dozens of worlds came to prove themselves. Humans, however, were rare here, and among those rare humans, Lieutenant Arya Valen was the newest and the most underestimated. Arya tightened the straps of her flight suit as she stepped into the bustling hangar. The air smelled faintly of ozone and engine oil. Around her, alien pilots of every shape and size moved with confidence. Long-limbed Arklans chatted in a rapid clicking language. Floating turbines adjusted their gravity boots mid-step. Everywhere she looked, she saw skill and experience, and everywhere she looked, she felt small. Careful where you step. "Rookie," a voice hissed behind her. Arya turned to see Jortek, a hulking reptilian pilot with jagged scales that shimmered green under the hangar lights. He leaned against a nearby ship, arms crossed, smirking. "Don't trip on your own boots. You wouldn't want to embarrass your species before we even take off." Arya clenched her jaw. She was used to this kind of treatment. In the military across the galaxy, humans were often treated as curiosities. Novelty pilots, interesting to look at but not worth trusting in combat. The irony was that she had been trained on some of the most advanced human ships ever built. Yet here that experience meant little. Her ship, a small and older human prototype called the HX-9 Sparrowhawk, gleamed under the hangar lights. Compared to the sleek, jagged warbirds of the Arklons or the shimmering Turvan cruisers, it looked ordinary, even ancient, even laughable. "Is that your ship?" Jortek sneered, stepping closer. "I thought humans were extinct in the war zone. That thing looks like a museum piece." Arya's fingers brushed the cool hull of the HX-9. "It may look old," she said evenly, "but it can outrun and outmaneuver almost anything in its class." Jortek laughed, a harsh rattling sound. "Class? You mean scrap heap? Don't get your circuits crossed, rookie. You're in over your head here." Arya's ears burned, but she did not reply. Words were cheap. Skill was what mattered. And she intended to prove it, even if it took every ounce of patience and nerve she had. Her commander, Admiral Valen, appeared suddenly, his 4 eyes scanning the hangar with sharp precision. He was a tall Turvan, translucent skin glowing faintly as his inner lights pulsed. "Valen," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Your next assignment is a simulated combat exercise. Don't embarrass yourself, or humanity." Arya forced herself to swallow her nerves. The simulations were designed to test strategy, reflexes, and coordination. For her, they were the perfect chance to show that humans were more than just curiosity pilots. She stepped into the cockpit of the HX-9, the controls familiar under her fingers. The ship hummed to life, lights flickering as it powered up. She felt a thrill. This was her domain. Not the hangar, not the taunting aliens, not the whispered doubts. This was where she could prove herself. The simulation began. Holographic enemy fighters swarmed from all directions, blinding in their speed and maneuverability. Arya twisted the controls, flipping the HX-9 through a tight barrel roll, narrowly avoiding a strike. The holographic targeting system locked on, but her instincts guided her. She darted between imaginary asteroids, weaving through the assault with precision. Yet despite her skill, the aliens were relentless. Jortek's voice came over the comms, mocking. "Is that all you've got, rookie? You call that flying?" Arya gritted her teeth and ignored him. She calculated, improvised, and pushed the HX-9 beyond its limits. But then a sudden miscalculation, a misread of speed and distance, sent her spinning into a holographic asteroid. The simulation ended in a flash of red lights. "Mission failed," the system announced coldly. A chorus of laughter erupted from the observation deck. Arya's heart sank, but she held her head high. She had pushed herself and learned something new, even if the aliens didn't see it. "Pathetic," Jortek spat, though there was a hint of grudging respect. "You almost made it interesting." Admiral Valen shook his head. "Humans," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "Always trying, always failing." Arya left the simulation with a bitter taste, but she did not despair. Failure was only a step toward mastery. She cleaned the HX-9 meticulously, polishing every surface, checking every system. Each adjustment, each tweak, she whispered encouragement to herself. One day they will see. Days passed. Arya trained relentlessly. While others relied on brute force or alien reflexes, she relied on calculation, improvisation, and adaptability. She learned every weakness and strength of her ship, turning its outdated systems into advantages no alien had expected. Then came the unexpected moment. During a routine briefing, Admiral Valen's holo projection flickered to life, showing a map of the contested border sector between two warring alien coalitions. "Lieutenant Valen," the Admiral said, his eyes narrowing, "we have a mission, a reconnaissance patrol in the Vortis sector. It's lightly supervised. You will operate independently. Your objective is to gather intelligence on enemy positions. Stealth is priority. Avoid engagement if possible." Arya's pulse quickened. This was it. A chance to prove herself not just in simulation but in real space. She had no backup, no experienced wingman, just her, the HX-9 and the vast dark unknown of the Vortis sector. Jortek overheard the briefing and smirked. "Alone? That's cute. Don't get yourself vaporized, rookie. We wouldn't want to report a human casualty on day one." Arya forced a calm smile. "I'll be fine," she said, though inside a spark of determination flared. They will see. They will all see. The launch day arrived. The HX-9, modest but gleaming, detached from the station and glided into the void. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, distant suns twinkling like tiny diamonds against black velvet. Arya's hands danced over the controls, guiding the ship through asteroid belts and debris fields with ease. She remembered her training, the lessons from countless simulations and the words of human pilots who had flown before her. Trust yourself, trust your ship, and never underestimate ingenuity. Hours passed in tense silence. Every blip on her scanner was a potential threat. Every shadow in the void could be an enemy scout. And then finally she saw it, a glimmer of an alien patrol ship moving quietly along the Vortis border. Her heart raced. This was the moment, not to attack but to observe, record, and survive. She activated the HX-9's cloaking system, weaving her ship into the shadows of a nearby asteroid field. Her sensors recorded the patrol's movements, documenting positions and routines without alerting the enemy. For the first time, Arya allowed herself a small smile. She was doing it. Alone, underestimated, and mocked, she was succeeding where others would have failed. But in the shadows, unseen, the alien patrols whispered among themselves. "A human, alone?" one hissed. "Daring!" Almost foolish. Arya had no idea that this reconnaissance, this simple act of intelligence gathering, was the first step in earning a name that would echo across the galaxy, a name that would make even seasoned veterans, aliens and humans alike, sit up and take notice. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and Arya Valen, the rookie among the universe's greatest pilots, pressed onward. Her journey had only begun. And far away in the heart of the alien fleets, rumors began to stir, of a human in a small, outdated ship, moving with impossible skill. The Iron Unicorn. Perhaps not a myth after all. The HX-9 Sparrowhawk slipped silently through the dark expanse of the Vortis sector. Stars sparkled coldly around Arya Valen, and the hum of her ship was the only sound she could hear. This was a place few dared to enter without reinforcements. Patrols from two alien factions crisscrossed the sector, each alert for intruders. Yet here she was, alone, a human rookie piloting an outdated ship. Arya's fingers danced over the controls, adjusting the energy flow to the shields and engine thrusters. The HX-9 may have looked small and fragile compared to the sleek alien warships, but its systems were designed for ingenuity, for improvisation, for one pilot to outthink a fleet. She had studied the schematics of Vortis space thoroughly and knew where the patrols typically traveled. The first sign of trouble appeared on her sensors. A small alien scout vessel, the size of a medium cruiser, glinting in the distance. It was scanning the asteroid belt ahead. Arya froze. One wrong move and she would be detected, a tiny dot against the void, an easy target. Steady. Steady, she whispered to herself. She nudged the HX-9 forward, weaving through the shadows of jagged asteroids. The ship's cloaking system hummed softly, making her almost invisible. The scout passed just a few hundred meters from her position, scanning the field with sophisticated sensors. Arya held her breath, heart hammering. Then with a soft exhale, she let the scout drift away. Her pulse slowed, but she knew this was only the beginning. The real challenge was ahead, a hidden alien outpost she had spotted on the fleet maps, located in the densest part of the asteroid belt. Sensors indicated that the outpost was preparing for a strike against neutral colonies in the sector. Information like this could save thousands of lives, but only if she could get it back to the fleet. As she approached, her scanners began picking up multiple signatures. Warships emerging from concealed docks, shield generators powering up. The outpost was larger than she expected. 4 heavy cruisers orbited it in tight formation, and smaller patrol ships zipped between asteroids like predators. Arya's first instinct was caution. Direct confrontation would mean certain destruction. But then she remembered something her mentor had told her during training. When the odds are against you, think like the enemy. They expect conventional tactics. Surprise them. She activated a secondary system she had installed herself, a small network of decoy drones. They projected faint energy signatures that mimicked the HX-9, tricking enemy sensors into thinking multiple ships were present. The drones slipped from the ship like shadows, scattering in different directions. The alien scouts noticed the drones immediately. Their sensors lit up, and they altered their courses to investigate. Arya's small ship, invisible to their scans, slipped past them unnoticed. She felt a surge of exhilaration. For the first time in her career, she was not reacting, she was leading, outthinking an entire fleet. Suddenly, a warning blared. Energy spike detected. Her scanners showed a missile locked on her position. One of the cruisers had detected the drone pattern as a false signal and had fired in retaliation. Arya's hands moved instinctively. She adjusted the thrusters, performing a near-impossible loop around a massive asteroid. The missile streaked past, detonating harmlessly against the rock. She exhaled sharply, adrenaline rushing. This was no simulation. This was real life, real danger, and she was holding her own. Inside the outpost, alien officers began whispering. A human? Alone? Impossible. Their tone shifted from surprise to cautious respect. No human had survived this far without backup. And yet here she was, dancing through their defenses like a phantom. Arya's next challenge was the outpost itself. She needed information, coordinates, battle plans, troop numbers, but there was no way to board it undetected. The solution came in the form of the HX-9 specialized reconnaissance modules. Tiny drones could slip through security gaps, transmit data back to her, and avoid detection. She launched the drones carefully, watching as they flew silently toward the outpost. Inside, they slipped through maintenance shafts and sensor grids, recording everything. Arya monitored their feed on her cockpit screens, heart racing as the enemy's defenses unfolded before her eyes. Hours passed. The more data she collected, the more she realized the gravity of the situation. The outpost was preparing a strike larger than any intelligence report had suggested. Entire colonies could be threatened if the fleet did not act in time. Arya knew she could not fight the outpost directly. Her ship alone could not withstand a sustained engagement with the heavy cruisers. Yet she also realized that she did not need to. Her strength was her mind, her ingenuity, her human unpredictability. She began plotting a route to escape, weaving through asteroid tunnels, using sensor shadows and gravitational pulls to her advantage. Just as she began her retreat, a sudden jolt shook the HX-9. "They detected me," she shouted. A small squadron of alien interceptors had been deployed to hunt her down. The chase was on. Arya pushed the HX-9 to its limits. She darted between asteroids, using every trick in her arsenal. Sharp turns, sudden stops, microjumps, and even feigned deceleration to confuse her pursuers. One interceptor collided with an asteroid, shredded into pieces by its own momentum. Another miscalculated and was forced to retreat. Arya's mind worked faster than ever, anticipating every move, improvising continuously. She realized that the human advantage was not in brute strength or firepower. It was creativity, unpredictability, and courage. Every maneuver she made was something the alien pilots could not anticipate. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the HX-9 slipped through a narrow gap between 2 massive asteroids, emerging into open space. Her ship's scanners confirmed that she was out of range of the cruisers and interceptors. She allowed herself a brief, triumphant smile. She had done it. Alone, underestimated, mocked by everyone who thought humans were weak, she had survived. But survival was not enough. She needed to return with the data. Activating her ship's long-range transmitter, She sent the information back to the fleet. Every coordinate, every troop movement, every plan of the enemy was encoded and dispatched. Now the aliens who had laughed at her before would have to take notice. The humans were not just rookies, they were cunning, resourceful, and dangerous in ways no one expected. Hours later, as the HX-9 approached a rendezvous point near a neutral asteroid field, Arya reflected on what had happened. She had faced real danger, made split-second decisions, and survived against overwhelming odds. Her body was exhausted, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She also realized something else. She was no longer just a rookie. Out here, among the stars, she had begun to earn a reputation, not just as a human, but as a force to be reckoned with. Somewhere, in the whispers of alien command posts, her name was beginning to circulate. The Iron Unicorn, she whispered to herself, a small smile on her lips. The nickname had come from her ship's design and the myths her people told of a lone warrior who could overcome impossible odds. The aliens might not know it yet, but humans were not to be underestimated. Arya navigated the HX-9 back through the dense asteroid belt, carefully avoiding detection. The patrols had likely been reinforced, expecting another human to fall into a trap. But this human had learned, adapted, and thrived where others would have failed. At the edge of the sector, the glow of a distant nebula painted the HX-9 in soft purples and blues. Arya allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. She had survived the first true test of her career. She had collected intelligence critical to the fleet's survival, and she had proven, if only to herself, that humans were capable of greatness in ways no alien could imagine. Yet, deep in her mind, she knew this was only the beginning. The Vorta sector was just one challenge. Out there beyond the stars, awaited larger fleets, more cunning enemies, and battles that would test her ingenuity, courage, and resolve even further. Arya tightened her grip on the controls, her eyes focused on the path ahead. She was ready. The galaxy had laughed at humans before, but she would show them that laughter was premature. Somewhere, a space marine watched the distant sector from an observation post, long thought to be a myth. And in that moment, a shadow of recognition crossed his face. "The Iron Unicorn," he muttered. "We thought you were a myth." Arya Valen did not hear the words yet, but the seeds of legend had already been sown. The human who was laughed at, underestimated, and mocked by an entire galaxy was beginning her rise. The neutral colony of Ilara floated in the blackness of space like a fragile pearl, its cities sparkling faintly against the dark canvas of the void. From orbit, the colony seemed peaceful, unaware of the storm that was approaching. Alien fleets, vast and organized, were moving into attack positions, preparing to strike before any reinforcements could arrive. Arya Valen, now dubbed the Iron Unicorn by whispered rumors in alien command channels, approached the colony in the HX-9 Sparrowhawk. She had already relayed critical intelligence to the fleet, revealing the enemy positions and potential strategies. But intelligence alone would not save the colony. Action was required, and fast. Her ship moved like a phantom through the outer asteroid fields, scanning for patrols. Even now she felt the weight of being alone, outnumbered and underestimated. But she had grown used to it. Every mockery, every laugh had become fuel for her determination. The first enemy cruiser appeared on her sensors. A hulking vessel, its shields glowing with a deadly energy field. It was the spearhead of the attack. Arya knew her ship could not outgun it head-on. The HX-9's weapons were too small, her shields too weak. But what she lacked in raw firepower, she made up for in ingenuity and speed. Arya plotted a course through a dense asteroid belt nearby. The cruisers followed, expecting a straightforward engagement. They did not anticipate the maneuvers of a human pilot, nor the tactical creativity that humans had honed for centuries. "Engage the decoy drones," she whispered to herself, activating the small fleet of holographic projections she had prepared. These projected multiple energy signatures, mimicking a larger human fleet. The alien ships diverted their fire, trying to target the decoys. She zipped past them, weaving between asteroids, firing precise shots at critical components on the cruiser. Her attacks were not meant to destroy outright, but to confuse and disrupt. The cruiser's shields flared, faltered, and then recovered. The alien captain barked orders, frustrated at the elusive human who seemed to vanish at will. Meanwhile, Arya's communications panel crackled. Allied ships were beginning to arrive, reinforcements from the fleet she had warned. Still, they were slow and the aliens had the advantage in numbers and raw firepower. The human pilot understood that she could not wait for reinforcements. She had to act first. She plotted an audacious maneuver. Using the HX-9's small size and agility, she would act as a decoy, drawing enemy fire while the Allied ships flanked the enemy fleet from behind. It was risky. If she failed, the colony might fall. But Arya had learned long ago that calculated risk was the path to victory. She accelerated, darting toward the nearest alien cruiser. The ship's energy cannons locked onto her position. She performed a sudden, impossible loop around a massive asteroid, her ship twisting and turning with grace. Missiles streaked past her, detonating against rock. The cruiser fired its main cannon, and Arya barely managed to escape the blast radius. From the enemy perspective, the human was a ghost. They could not predict her moves. They could not understand her tactics. And they certainly did not expect the Sparrowhawk, an old, outdated human ship, to act with the precision of a seasoned commander. Behind her, the Allied fleet moved into position. Guided by the intelligence Arya had sent earlier, the ships flanked the alien forces, attacking weak points she had identified. The aliens were caught off guard, their formation disrupted by the small, unexpected human at the forefront. Arya's heart raced. Every maneuver had to be perfect. She dodged and weaved, drawing enemy fire away from the colony and the flanking fleet. Every shot she fired, every evasive twist was a carefully calculated risk, and every move brought the humans closer to turning the tide of battle. Suddenly, an alien dreadnought, larger than any ship she had encountered, emerged from behind the asteroids. Its massive guns bristled, and it moved with terrifying speed for its size. It seemed almost indestructible. Arya's first thought was survival, but then she realized she could turn even this into an advantage. Using the terrain of the asteroid field, she led the dreadnought on a chase. Its weapons, powerful but slow to track rapid movements, could not keep up with the HX-9's agility. She darted between rocks, looping around the massive ship, firing at its weaker components. The dreadnought's shields faltered under the pressure of precise strikes, while its larger guns wasted energy on her unpredictable movements. The alien officers aboard the dreadnought began to whisper among themselves, astonished. "A human? Single-handedly distracting our fleet?" One hissed. "Impossible," another muttered. Arya knew the moment was coming, the critical strike that would shift the battle. She calculated the positions of the enemy ships, the trajectory of their weapons, and the precise timing of the Allied fleet's flanking attack. With a deep breath, she performed a daring jump through a narrow asteroid gap, appearing directly behind the dreadnought. She fired a concentrated plasma burst at the ship's engine core, bypassing shields with pinpoint accuracy. The dreadnought shuddered violently, its engines faltering. Its massive guns spun uselessly as the Allied fleet moved in to finish the attack. The other cruisers and interceptors began retreating, their formation broken and morale shaken. Arya's audacity, ingenuity, and relentless courage had caused chaos in the enemy ranks. The colony below remained safe for now. As the battle settled, Arya pulled back, scanning the battlefield. Her small ship bore scratches and scorched panels, but it had survived. She felt a swell of pride, not for the ship, but for what she had accomplished. A human, underestimated and mocked, had turned the tide of battle with nothing but skill, courage, and strategy. Then, over the comms, a voice she had only heard in legends spoke. "Iron Unicorn," said a deep, commanding tone. Arya froze. The voice belonged to a space marine, one of the galaxy's most legendary warriors, long thought to exist only in myths. "We thought you were a myth," Arya's breath caught. The words carried weight, respect, recognition, and a hint of awe. The same aliens who had laughed at her before now whispered her name with fear and caution. Even Jortek's voice came through later, shaky and uncertain. "You survived, and you did what no human or anyone else could." There was no longer mockery in his tone, only reluctant respect. The colony of Alara sent a message of gratitude, and the Allied fleet acknowledged her leadership. Even if it had been informal, she had done the impossible. A lone, underestimated human had outmaneuvered an entire alien strike force. As she piloted the HX-9 through the debris of the battle, Arya reflected on what had happened. She had learned that courage, intelligence, and improvisation could defeat raw power. She had begun to understand the full weight of being human in a galaxy that doubted them, and she knew this was only the beginning. The alien forces would regroup stronger and wiser. The Vortis sector was just one battle in what promised to be a larger war. But now she had something they did not expect. The element of surprise. They had underestimated humans once. They would not underestimate her again. As the HX-9 glided silently toward a safe rendezvous point, Arya allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. She had proven something fundamental, not just to the aliens or the fleet, but to herself. Humans could be brilliant, unpredictable, and unstoppable when they relied on courage and creativity. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and in the vast silence of space, Arya Valen smiled. She was no longer just a rookie. She was the Iron Unicorn, a legend in the making. Somewhere, the whispers continued, traveling through alien fleets and command centers. A new story was being written in the galaxy, and it began with a human pilot, underestimated, overlooked, and mocked, now rising as a force that could not be ignored. The flagship of the Allied fleet drifted silently above the neutral world of Terrene, its immense hull reflecting the faint glow of distant stars. Inside, corridors buzzed with activity, officers and crew preparing reports, monitoring communications, and coordinating the fleet's next moves. Amidst this organized chaos, Lieutenant Arya Valen entered the command chamber. Her HX-9 Sparrowhawk docked nearby, still bearing the scars of recent battle. Arya had expected whispers, perhaps cautious nods from aliens who had doubted her. She had not expected the full attention of the fleet's leadership or the tension that filled the room. Where she stepped, eyes turned, some filled with awe, others with disbelief. Even the veteran alien officers, previously dismissive of her presence, now regarded her with caution. Admiral Valen, the tall turvan with glowing skin and sharp eyes, approached her. "Lieutenant Valen," he began, voice steady but tinged with respect, "you have exceeded every expectation. Your reconnaissance and tactics in the Vortis sector were remarkable." Arya inclined her head politely. "Thank you, Admiral. I did what I could to protect the colonies and relay intelligence." Valen's expression softened slightly. "You did more than that. You've demonstrated qualities we thought humans lacked in large-scale combat. Ingenuity, adaptability, and courage under fire." Jortek, the reptilian pilot who had mocked her since day one, now stood awkwardly in the corner. His scales shimmered faintly, betraying a mixture of envy and admiration. I underestimated you," he admitted grudgingly. You moved like nothing I've ever seen." Arya smiled faintly. "It's all right, Jortek. I know humans are unusual here. You're not the only one surprised." Even as she accepted this recognition, she felt a weight settle over her shoulders. Praise was fleeting in the galaxy, and enemies always lurked nearby waiting for mistakes. The battle had been won, but war was never ending. As she reviewed the incoming reports from the fleet, one transmission caught her attention. It was from an observer she had only known by reputation, a space marine, legendary among all species, rarely seen and spoken of as myth. "Lieutenant Valen," the marine's voice resonated through her comlink, deep and calm. "We have been observing your actions. Your performance has surpassed expectations. We feared the stories of humans were exaggerated. Yet here you are. The Iron Unicorn is real." Arya felt a surge of pride. Recognition from a figure of such authority was more than she could have imagined. Yet she did not let it distract her. The galaxy was dangerous, and the enemy would not wait for her to revel in praise. Later, she walked through the fleet's observation deck, gazing at the stars. The HX-9 Sparrowhawk rested in the docking bay, battered but resilient, a reflection of her own journey. She thought about the alien fleets she had outmaneuvered, the patrols she had evaded, and the dreadnought she had helped cripple. She was beginning to see that being underestimated was a human advantage. Aliens expected weakness, simplicity, and conformity. Humans could exploit every expectation. Her reflections were interrupted by a sudden alert. Sensors detected a small alien scout vessel attempting to shadow the fleet. It was likely gathering information for a future strike. Arya immediately recognized the danger. Even a minor leak could compromise the colonies and the fleet's position. "Permission to intercept?" she asked Admiral Valen. He nodded. "Proceed, Lieutenant. But remain cautious. Do not underestimate them." Arya suited up and entered the HX-9 once again. The vessel hummed to life, lights flickering softly as she prepared for another encounter. Even the smallest engagements could be dangerous, and every action she took now could cement her reputation or end her mission. As she approached the scout ship, she analyzed its movements. The vessel was sleek, fast, and lightly armed, perfect for espionage. Arya knew she could not engage directly without risking escalation. Instead, she relied on human cunning. Activating a series of decoy transmissions and micro-jumps, she created the illusion of a larger force. The scout hesitated, confused by the seemingly impossible maneuvers. Arya's small ship darted between asteroids, appearing in multiple positions at once. The alien vessel, unable to track her accurately, finally disengaged and retreated. Back aboard the flagship, Arya reported the encounter. The fleet officers listened carefully, realizing that the human pilot had neutralized a threat without firing a single shot. The room was quiet, save for the sound of pens scratching and data streams updating. Recognition, they realized, was not just about surviving combat. It was about preventing it entirely through clever tactics. Later, a council of allied species gathered to discuss the implications of her actions. Hushed whispers circulated. Humans, long dismissed as novelty fighters, were suddenly seen as unpredictable and formidable. The Iron Unicorn had become more than a nickname, it was a symbol. Arya attended the council, her presence both respected and scrutinized. Aliens who had once mocked her were now hesitant to speak, fearing misjudgment. She listened quietly as leaders debated fleet strategy, knowing that her contributions would shape decisions, even if she was the youngest and least experienced present. One alien delegate, a tall Arclan with glimmering scales, finally spoke. "We underestimated your kind. This human has demonstrated ingenuity we cannot ignore. Perhaps it is time we reassess our view of humans entirely." Arya's ears twitched with a mixture of pride and caution. She had not sought accolades, only the chance to prove herself. Yet here she was, shaping perceptions of her species across multiple star systems. As the meeting concluded, Arya returned to her quarters, reflecting on the rapid changes in her life. Recognition was powerful, but it carried weight. Aliens would now watch her every move, expecting brilliance or failure. She knew that her next missions would be scrutinized more than ever. That night, as she gazed at the stars from her small quarters, she thought about the colonies she had helped protect, the alien fleets she had outmaneuvered, and the space marine who had acknowledged her skill. The galaxy was changing, and humans, once overlooked, were beginning to command respect. Yet Arya understood something else. Fear had begun to follow her as well. Aliens whispered her name in awe and trepidation. Leaders considered her tactics in planning their next moves. She had become more than a pilot. She was a symbol of human ingenuity and courage. The next day, the fleet received reports of unusual alien movements. Scouting parties and reconnaissance vessels were being rerouted, likely in response to the Iron Unicorn's actions. Even distant warlords spoke cautiously of the human pilot who had outmaneuvered entire fleets. Arya prepared once again for patrol. She knew that each mission would test her further, pushing her limits and challenging her wits. But she also knew that humans had a unique advantage in the galaxy: the ability to innovate under pressure, to surprise, to adapt in ways no alien could anticipate. As she entered the HX-9, the ship seemed almost alive, humming in anticipation. The battles ahead would be greater, the enemies more cunning, and the stakes higher. Yet for the first time, Arya felt truly ready. She was no longer just a rookie. She was a human, a force that even the most formidable alien species would have to respect. The void beyond the neutral world of Terrene was alive with tension. Thousands of ships glinted like scattered jewels in the black. The alien armada preparing to strike with overwhelming force. Reports from scouts indicated that this was no minor attack. An entire fleet had been mobilized, a force designed to crush the human-led coalition and make an example of those who defied them. Lieutenant Arya Valen stood in the cockpit of the HX-9 Sparrowhawk, her hands steady on the controls. The ship bore scars from previous battles, but she trusted it as she trusted herself. Around her, allied ships were preparing, their crews tense, many of them counting on her ingenuity and courage to tip the scales. Arya's heart beat fast, not with fear, but with focus. She had learned that fear clouded judgment, and judgment would be their greatest weapon. She reviewed the intelligence she had gathered, the armada's formation, the weakness in their flanks, the timing of their shield cycles. The plan was simple in concept, complex in execution, disruption, misdirection, and precision strikes. Lieutenant Valen, Admiral Valan's voice crackled over comms, calm yet commanding. You are to lead the first strike. Your target, the dreadnoughts at the heart of their fleet. Your objective, draw fire and create openings for Allied ships to exploit. Arya nodded. Understood, Admiral. I'll do my best. She knew that doing her best would mean risking everything, her ship, her life, and perhaps even the lives of those depending on her. But she also knew that humans had a secret weapon the aliens never anticipated: unpredictability. The HX-9 slipped forward, weaving through the asteroid-strewn battlefield. Alien dreadnoughts loomed like mountains in space, their massive guns tracking every movement. She activated the Sparrowhawk's decoy systems, projecting multiple energy signatures to confuse enemy sensors. The first volley of plasma fire streaked toward her. Arya twisted the ship in impossible arcs, dodging and weaving, her mind moving faster than her hands. Each maneuver was calculated, precise, and designed to exploit the alien fleet's assumptions. Where they expected recklessness, she offered cunning. Where they expected retreat, she offered audacity. Her ship's sensors picked up a weak point in the central dreadnought's shield array. With a deep breath, she surged forward, slipping between the massive cannons and firing a concentrated energy pulse directly at the vulnerable reactor core. The dreadnought shuddered violently, its shields flickering and its main weapons sputtered. The alien officers aboard the ship could hardly believe what they saw. A single human piloting a seemingly outdated craft had infiltrated the heart of their fleet and struck a decisive blow. Whispers of iron unicorn traveled through their ranks. Not mockery, but fear. Meanwhile, Allied ships exploited the opening. Cruisers and interceptors surged into the gaps, targeting previously shielded vessels. The enemy formation faltered, their coordinated assault breaking down under the pressure of the human-led counterattack. Arya knew she had to keep moving. She dodged missiles, fired precision shots at critical systems, and coordinated with Allied command to direct reinforcements where they were needed most. Her mind worked like a supercomputer, calculating trajectories, timing attacks, and anticipating enemy reactions. Then the largest threat emerged, a massive alien command ship. Bristling with weapons, its shields nearly impenetrable, it moved toward the HX-9 with deliberate intent, clearly recognizing the human pilot as a significant threat. Arya gritted her teeth. This was the moment that would define everything. She engaged every system she could, boosting the Sparrowhawk's speed, diverting energy to weapons, and preparing for the most daring maneuver of her life. With a sudden burst, she looped around a nearby asteroid, using its gravity to slingshot herself directly behind the command ship. Its guns tracked her, but they were designed for larger targets moving predictably. She was not predictable. She fired a series of precise energy pulses at the ship's shield generators. Sparks and smoke erupted, and alarms blared across the enemy vessel. The command ship faltered, its formation disrupted. The alien armada's attack lost cohesion, their strategy unraveling under the pressure of human ingenuity. Allied forces surged forward, pressing the advantage, and the tide of battle began to turn. In the heat of the fight, Arya noticed an alien fighter squadron attempting to flank the Allied fleet. She made a split-second decision, diving into the path of the squadron. Her ship twisted and spun, drawing their fire and leading them into a cluster of asteroids. Several were destroyed as they collided with the rocks, and the rest retreated, wary of the unpredictable human pilot. Through the chaos, Admiral Valan's voice came over the comms, filled with awe. Lieutenant Valen, your tactics, extraordinary. The fleet is gaining the advantage because of you. Arya allowed herself a brief smile. She could not celebrate yet, not while danger still lurked, but she felt the satisfaction of a plan executed flawlessly. She had proven that humans could turn the impossible into reality. As the battle reached its climax, Arya realized that the enemy was attempting one final, desperate maneuver, a coordinated strike aimed directly at the colonies the fleet was protecting. She had to act decisively. Calculating quickly, she devised a plan that relied on misdirection. She activated every decoy system, creating dozens of phantom HX-9 signatures across the battlefield. The alien fleet, confused and divided, redirected fire toward the decoys. Arya's actual ship slipped past their lines, striking at key command points in the armada. The impact was devastating. Shields failed, engines malfunctioned, and alien coordination collapsed entirely. The Allied fleet seized the moment, pressing forward with overwhelming force. By the time the enemy realized their errors, the battle was lost. As silence fell over the battlefield, Arya floated among the wreckage of enemy ships, breathing heavily. Her ship was scorched and battered, but it had survived. The colonies were safe, and the alien fleet had been defeated. Over the comms, a voice she had not expected spoke. It was the Space Marine, legendary across the galaxy. Lieutenant Valen, the Iron Unicorn. You have done what few could even imagine. Humanity has proven its worth. Arya's heart swelled. Recognition from one of the greatest warriors in history was beyond any honor she could have imagined. Yet she did not let it distract her. There were always more battles, more challenges ahead. But for this moment, she allowed herself to feel pride. Messages poured in from across the galaxy. Colonies expressed gratitude. Allied leaders offered commendations, and whispers of the Iron Unicorn spread even among enemy factions. Humans, once dismissed as weak and inconsequential, were now seen as unpredictable, brilliant, and courageous. Jortek approached her later, his scales shimmering faintly. I misjudged you, Arya. You have changed everything. Arya smiled softly. It wasn't just me. It was all of us working together, but yes, humans are not to be underestimated. As she looked out at the stars, Arya thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a rookie mocked by every alien she met to a symbol of courage, ingenuity, and human potential. She had faced impossible odds, relied on her mind and her instincts, and proven that humans could rise above expectation. The galaxy had laughed at humans before. It would not laugh again. And somewhere beyond the stars, the legend of the Iron Unicorn was already spreading. Ships whispered her name, officers speculated about her next move, and even her enemies treated humans with caution. Arya Valen, once a rookie among the stars, had become a beacon of human resilience, bravery, and brilliance. The HX-9 glided through the silent aftermath of the battle, battered but victorious. Arya rested her hands on the controls and allowed herself a rare moment of quiet. She had done the impossible. She had turned mockery into legend, and she knew that humanity's story in the galaxy was only just beginning. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, promising new challenges, new adventures, and new opportunities to prove that humans, though underestimated, mocked and overlooked, could rise above all. And Arya Valen, the Iron Unicorn, would be at the forefront of it all. The galaxy would never forget her name.